Oh man. Well, hello family, and just welcome to an awesome discussion today that me and Pastor Maisha are getting ready to have. And so hopefully we're gonna wait a few minutes as you guys come in. But once again, thank you for joining us. Our topic today is excuses are destroying you. And I think the topic is great. And it's something that I've had to deal with my entire life because I've been using a lot of excuses my entire life, especially in areas which I fall short. And in general, a lot of people do this. From a biblical perspective, they're all over the Bible. It says man came on this earth. They've been using excuses, to cover up their wrong. And so things like this we're going to kind of discuss today and have a good time with it. So as you guys come on in, let us know you're there by typing in the chat or typing in your comment section because we will be able to respond to some things as we're online today. Well, family, let's go on and get started here. And as I want to pick up with just a story. I remember when I played ball, man, and sometimes we would have these workouts, or I would get tired of just the working out that we were doing. And so what I would tend to do is make up some type of crap. It was most of it had a lie was involved, but I made an excuse of why I could not be my best. And I bring that up because what tends to happen is excuses tend to cover a wrong, or something that we knew we could have did better. And another thing excuses do, excuses allow you to place blame where blame is not really there. So you to blame others for or circumstance for your failure or something that's taking place. And these are things that we want to address today on the channel. I think about in football, ever since a little kid, we would have these awesome athletes. And when an athlete makes a mistake, or like for instance, a receiver trying to catch a ball, and say he missed that touchdown catch. It is right there in his hands. And for some odd reason, this dude that caught this ball, 1,000 times, and this time he drops it, right? It's not that the hard portion is, or the fact that he drops it is the issue. What the issue is, all of a sudden the receiver has a limp, or something happened to his arm, or something happened to his leg, right? And we used to call that a loser's limp when I was young. Like, man, well, you just fake. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna be nice. Our coaches didn't really call it a loser's limp. My coaches was rough. I mean, I grew up with coaches that used to cuss, and so they would cuss at all of us. That's just the way it was. It wasn't the guy the big deal it is today, but they would cuss at all of us, right? And they would say some mean things sometimes. Man, stop being out there acting like the little B. But it's something because they wouldn't let you live with that excuse. The truth of the matter is you just made that mistake. But a lot of times what happens is because we try to make this excuse, or we try to cover up what that failure, okay, with the excuse, we want to put the blame there. So the reason is awesome, because what a reason says is I accept what happened. But this is what took place. For instance, the reason I missed that touchdown is because I dropped the ball. So that's the reason. What excuse allows you to place blame on something else for the actual reason of why you did something. So excuse would say, what, because of my leg was hurt, or because I had a cramp, or I pulled my muscle was the reason I didn't catch that ball. No, that's an excuse, man. You're fine. You're just using that, try to cover up, or put the place to blame in somewhere it's not. Because see, when we give a reason for something, a reason simply is we're being accountable and responsible for what just took place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a lot of times as I deal with men in that nature, I always talk to them about being accountable and responsible, and not putting excuses in the place of our behavior or the things that we're supposed to do. A lot of my failures I know I've had so far in this lifetime, especially as an adult, have been in the areas of when I have fallen short and I didn't want to be held accountable or responsible for it. So what I did was either place the blame on this issue, that circumstance, or even my wife. Well, because you didn't do this, because this happened, this is the reason for all this stuff falling apart. And the truth of the matter is, I was the one that was responsible for it. I was the one that was accountable, and because I refused to be responsible and accountable, I use an excuse, try to place the blame somewhere else. So that's what we're kind of going over today, because we need to see excuses for what they are. Excuses tend to cause such, I want to say, such disasters in certain areas of our lives that we haven't grown. I'm going to say it like this. Some people have excused themselves out of a fruitful, productive life simply because that's all they have ever done was use excuses and not accepted the responsibility and refuse to be accountable for their own actions.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the topics, excuses are destroying you, that's where we're coming from today, Maisha.
Well, awesome. So, when it comes from my perspective regarding excuses, I actually see it the opposite as well. I see when, or I've experienced, and I still experience in my kids and uh, their friends come back to me and talk to me about certain times when people say things that are more or less promises. Like, you know what, I will always be there. I will make sure, you will never, if I'm around, this will never happen to you, this, that, and the other. And then when the child or the person has a need, that person has the person who promised and gave them the world in their word turns around and is like, oh well, I had an appointment to get to, or I couldn't do that because there was another person here and they wouldn't have been comfortable if I had let you, and so those are excuses from the perspective of the person who needed you and believed you when you said it, right? So they took your words as being promises, they took your words as being actions that will come true in the future. Think about that, right? So you're telling me I will always be there for you. You just have to call me. But then when it's time when I need you and oh, you have a shift at work, you can't be there for me. Wait, hold on. I know work is important, but you gave me a guarantee that something was going to happen if I was in this moment. And now I'm in this moment. So what you got for me is a shift at work? I mean, and see, this is what's real life, and people go through this all the time. But the problem with when we're speaking about something, making a promise that's an action that will be made or taken in the future, and then you turn around, the future comes, and all you got is a reason why you're not going to make what you said the truth. Doesn't that equate to an excuse?
It does. Now let's separate reason. I want to do this right now. Let's separate reason. Oh, give me a second. I have this small paper, and it's a better way if I read it than if I say it. I know it. I know it. Give me a second. I know I got this. So give me a second.
Yes, there's Julian. Yeah, let your actions speak so loudly I can't hear what you
Yeah,
say.
that's
There
it.
you go.
Yeah, that was something Coach Tomey used to say all the time. But you know what? I've
Hmm.
heard that even from my childhood coaches a lot, and I remember that. But I had this. I had wrote this down. Now this is about reason. This is so separate reason from excuses. Reason implies that fault is sincerely recognized and accepted. That you step up and take accountability for your actions. An excuse exists to justify, blame, or defend a fault with the intent to absolve oneself of accountability.
Yep.
And I love that right there. I think that's a gives us a really good understanding what excuses do. We're trying to absolve ourselves, from the responsibility of what just happened wrong.
Hmm.
And man, speaking of Coach Tony, I hate that Barry put that up there. Boy, I can tell you a perfect example of something that happened with Coach. And Coach was hot, which he should have been. I was in the game playing, of course, and I made a terrible mistake, and it was near the goal line. I don't think I didn't have too many fumbles, but I remember I had this fumble. I got hit pretty good in the side, but coach always used to tell us, he would, the way you keep the ball, but keep it tight to your body. And for some odd reason, I was wondering with the ball loose, meaning my arm was flopping and stuff tight to my body like it should have been. Man, I gave him every reason in the world. Well, I got hit a certain way. They hit the ball, coach. That's what happened. And then we got to film. Oh my goodness. And it looked so bad when we got to the film room because literally the ball was already loose in my hand before I got hit. It was just waiting for somebody could have touched me in the back and that ball was going to fly out. Which happened because I wasn't carrying it right. But because when we were in the game and in that moment, I didn't want to face his wrath. I absolutely gave him an excuse about what happened. Now he probably didn't care for that at all. I'll be very honest with you. Coach Tomey and Coach Leonard. I mean, that was probably crap to them when they heard it. But that's exactly what we do. We're usually trying to run from what's real. Because we want to hide behind the excuse. I think about that a lot. I deal with a Kingdom Man group with some of the fellas. Matter of fact, Barry is actually one of the guys in that group. And as we deal with the fellas, we always talking about being accountable and responsible, and stepping up and taking the right actions and not excusing ourselves, from the proper actions and our behavior that we're supposed to be taking. And we start really thinking about that. I talk about the being about, we talk about fatherhood, of course, and being better better husbands, and and just more accountable in our lives. But we talk about. I'm sorry, more comments coming in, and I'm just seeing some of this stuff right. Oh,
Yeah, those
Mary
up
just got in trouble
downs.
for the same thing. 1,000 up down. Oh, I would have cried. I would have cried. Right? I'm just gonna be honest with you. I would have just fell out and cried like a baby. 1,000 up downs. I can see that right. Oh my goodness. You would have to let me do that over days. I can see it right now. 1,000 up downs. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about, I have seen where excuses have affected people's lives poorly. See, the problem is when you think of it at a deeper level. I mean, from an athletic level, we have that happens on the field, right? But it's a one and done thing most times, right? We move forward, we grow, we get better. The problem is, we have so many people, who have developed this loser's limp, using excuses in their life, and so instead of being accountable and responsible for their actions, they give too much weight to their circumstances. And that's huge, right? You give too much weight to your circumstances, which you're growing or developing in your life is you pushing everything off on the circumstance as the actual issue or the problem. And when you do that, guys, and that's all you always blame outside things for stuff that you should be in control of, things that you need to be responsible of. And that's where we know we have to get better in these areas in our lives. So that's just something to think about, something that we should take in, because we're supposed to be becoming greater. And we'll never be more than what we are now or become greater if we keep pushing things, we keep pushing everything away, and making excuses for our behavior.
Mhm.
You will never change what you don't feel like you're accountable for.
Well, isn't an excuse a justification, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's a justification of the thing that you are doing wrong. So you're justifying why this is okay to do. And
right.
the problem that I know that a lot of us face is that justification portion, right? So what's causing me to choose to justify this as being something that is right for me in this moment, or something that I should allow myself to continue doing? That's a challenge for a lot of people, for a lot of us, because even in that, we don't even necessarily always think about, this is a justification from a while ago that I don't have no business still justifying, or still doing. I'm supposed to be bigger and better than this, even in my own thought process about myself. So something just as small as, you think about this,
So,
going to the gym, right?
right.
I'm very guilty. I can definitely justify why it is not a good time for me to go. Oh, I don't need to be sweaty before I go and interact with these people. I'm a female. I don't want to smell. So, and it's like, okay, Maisha, can't you take a shower? They have a whole shower there. And don't you have one at home? Yes, but that but excuses me
Mm,
from doing what it is that I need to be doing. And that's just one example. Of course, there's zillions of examples, but that one is a lot, something I believe that a lot of people can get really quick. Just going to the gym. Most of us have a membership. Most of us don't use it. So they make free money off of us, right? There's other things, like I said before, when we give ourselves a way out because, oh, I have to go to work. Yes, but you said in the moment that I need you, and I don't need you every moment. I'm literally just asking you right now for your help. And because I don't ask often, I'm thinking that this is an important situation for me. You told me if I ever really need you. So I waited and I didn't ask for all the smaller things because I need this big thing right now. But you got to go to work. And so, which one weighs more in the time of need for the person who is in need and doesn't ask, saved it for just right now? Who is that, an excuse, or is that something that is excusable?
mm. I think, and I think another thing too, adding to this, sometimes some of our excuses have caused us to make life decisions in a negative way.
Yeah.
I look at like say one thing we talk about the men is of course with our families and our children. Sometimes we may have some of the fellas are whether divorced, some of them are single, but they have children. But that doesn't give us an excuse not to be in our children's lives.
Yes.
That doesn't and it's something because I got guys who've been out their children's lives for years, but yet they live like less than a mile away from their kid. And the truth of the matter is there's no excuse that we should be away from our children, that we shouldn't still be a father, that we should shake the responsibilities of a father. No, we still accountable to be a father. We're still accountable to be there for them. And then they sometimes they can wonder, like, why is my child not want to be part of my life, or why is this happening now? It's something because see, I realize a lot of times with some of the things that we face as men, we'll take an action, and that action has ripple effects,
Yeah.
right? And it's unfortunate because see, sometimes the action is we don't take no action, but still non-action is still an action, right? And so when we let excuses get in the way of our responsibilities, we are the ones who have caused these things. Well, my child's old now, they don't want a relationship with me. Well, when the time was there for you to have a relationship, you rejected it. You allowed the excuses to get in the way of you having that relationship, and so now they don't see any need for it, and you're paying the price because of it. See, we have to understand, some of these things, the excuses we make for things that are small, but
Yeah.
sometimes we make excuses for things that are actually they real big in our lives, and we don't. The problem is we don't know they're real big yet, right? We can sit there and say, be lying to our spouses about certain things, and you didn't realize that you were counting on your spouse to tell you the truth about something, and then you find out the truth later on. Then here you are, you're trying to rectify a certain thing. You're trying to change how you feel about it, but because you thought it was this way when you were younger, and all you find out that wasn't the truth. You say these are ripple effects. They have these are things that you've allowed, or you've caused because you put an excuse in the way of truth. And
Right.
we got to be so careful of how we do these things because they cause issues in our lives. And so don't think of it just from a small perspective. Think of it also, some of these things that we make excuses for have big, huge, I don't want to say complications behind them, you know, when the truth does come out, or when something does take place where the excuse cannot cover, or the excuse that doesn't really justify what really happened. And so also want you guys to view it from that way, and that's for men and women. Sometimes you complain about a father being in a child's life, but you didn't allow the father to come over and take the child, or you're always fighting the court. He can't have time to be with the child. The man's as other kids he's with all the time, so to speak, but he couldn't be with your child for whatever reason, and now the child grows up later on to find out yet you were the issue, because that's happening a lot these days also, right?
Yeah.
They found out the mother was the actual issue. You stopped me from seeing my dad. You stopped me and my dad from having a relationship. And you wonder why the child is now lashing out against you, or the young adult, whether it's lashing out against you, because you sat there and you justified your wrong.
Yeah.
You even did it to the public. You did it to the court system. I see this, guys. This is something I see a lot now. And I'm bringing these things up not just because of those very specific issues, but how we can make excuses, or we place blame where it does not belong, instead of just standing up to the truth. Hey, here I am. I did this. As a matter of fact, I truly believe more people, include myself, include myself. I truly
Mm.
believe, when you stand up and just say what's wrong the first time, it's something. Ooh, that's a good one. But I really believe it's something when you stand up and tell the truth the first time, because then you can deal with the consequences of your actions now. Don't
Right.
make it worse by putting an excuse or falsehood in place. Because when you put those things in place and people are trusting and believing in you concerning those things, it makes it very difficult, for reconciliation and in certain, and within certain relationships or certain situations to take place also.
Yeah. So I have something even about that too. Something you and I had worked out years ago. And that is literally the excuse that those falsehoods in place. Now, I love in one of your sermons, you explained very plainly that truth is literally this. It is literally the, um, go ahead and say it
But
because I want to
truth,
get in it.
truth, truth is a thought
Of
or
course.
belief that has a corresponding reality.
Right. So that
Yeah.
corresponding reality is what we now have to make happen for those falsehoods that we made the excuse with. Those falsehoods, we have to now make a reality out of it in order for it to become true in a sense.
So those
Think about
lies.
that. So we
So
have to
with
continue
those
on
lies, yeah,
making these lies a reality so it can have some sort of truth to it. And that's getting us further and further and further away from where we want it to be originally. And
right.
then it gets so far to where it's like, yeah, I don't know how to get back. Well, let's start with where we are now. Okay. how do we get back to where we are now? We're going to have to make some extreme change because it took extremes to get us here. And that's where a lot of us fall short because we're thinking, oh no, I'll just go ahead and do this. There's no just at this point. We started it out in Los Angeles, California. We're over in New York, New York. We're going to have a whole lot of journey to come back. We have some ways that we met. Look, we might have came out one way, but we have to go back another way. So we may have come all the way from the south, to Florida, and then went up the east coast. But now we may have to come up, from the north side and come down. So it's going to be some challenge. But the problem that I think a lot of us have with this challenge is simply the fact that it is worth it. It is worth it. It's worth the challenge. If you're looking at the end result being whatever it is that you are imagining, you can make that a reality. No different than making this other falsehood a reality. You can make the truth a reality for yourself. It's going to take some stuff. It's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you your whole reality now. It's going to cost everything that you built up right now. That may have to go in its entirety to create something real. And that's what I was talking about. We've gone through this for some time now, right? So this is exactly where we're not talking about. I'm not talking about something that I don't know nothing about, something somebody else told me I read in a book or I saw in a movie. I'm talking about something Maisha's been living for some years and will live for the rest of my life because it is that worth it to me now. Now I understand what it is like to have truth and to continue on in that. It's so much easier than to have to keep up trying to make up these fallacies and making those some sort of a reality. It's just so much easier to just be, this is me. This is what it is. I'm not perfect. I'm not able to even cause perfection to look like me right now. But what I am is me. And I'm real about moving forward and doing my best. And that's all I can give. That's all we're asking for. So that mother who you're having a problem with the father and so the kid is not able to be seen. Let's be honest, mom. Let's be honest. Every time I look at this kid, I see the father. I get ticked off about that. I don't want to see the father. But let's be honest about this too. This kid is a perfect example of what it was like to actually like this man at one time. Like him so much to where we offered our body. Okay. So at this point, when I look at this kid, when you look at this kid, remember what it was like for you in that moment when it was worth whatever the consequences were going to be. In that moment, it felt like love. It felt like something good. So every time we look at this kid, remember that feel like good. It feel like love. Remember that because that's what came out of that feeling. That's what came out of that expression of that feeling is this beautiful child right here. Right. And they're gonna get on your nerves too, but that has nothing to do with what father did.
That's right.
To you. That's right. This is a whole nother being born out of feels like good, feels like love. It is love. It is good. God breathed into him. This person was on purpose, not an accident. This is exactly what needed to be here at this time. God said so. So it's perfect.
Good. Hey, I got a wonderful thing came by. A couple comments we're going to touch on before from Andre. So, do you believe that procrastination is breeding ground or gateway to excuses? I do. A lot of times we got to be so careful here because we'll sit there and we'll put some on the back burner, so to speak. Some that we know we need to get done, some that we know that will help us to be successful, some that even will help us to be better. I find that in my everyday life. Truthfully, hey, I should be putting more time and effort into this. I should be working a little bit harder on this right here. And the problem is that we get to the place where we run out of time. And so we run out of time. What we do is, man, I just don't have enough time. And that's the excuse right there. I didn't have enough time, right? Oh, man, I have enough time to get to it. Man, bro, you've been doing it for 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? In your waking hours for the last 2 weeks, you didn't have enough time to touch on it. But you can even use that in a life situation, a relationship situation. You got somebody that you say you care about and you talk about, you want to talk to and be a part of your life, but you can't find a way to talk with them. You can't find a way to be around them. It's something how we'll say a certain thing, but we don't really mean it. Right. Because it comes back to that time. Well, I didn't have enough time. I fell short doing this. But we make time for people that we care about and we show in our actions. Right. You got to be so careful that you don't sit there and start telling yourself this narrative that you are really doing your best when you're not. So you got to be so careful of, procrastination, or, or using excuses in place of truth. Because sometimes you're using excuses in place of your own factual truth. Simply meaning you're telling yourself a story about something that's not real. And even going back to that example I just used, you say you care about somebody, and you would like to get to know them better. But if you can't find time to want to be around that person or talk with that person, hey, what you've done is just set yourself up for failure. They're probably not for you. You just are making excuses in place of truth. So that's just something to also think about. All right, did you want to touch on this, Maisha? If not, we'll go to the
Yeah,
next
I
one.
mean, that even
Yeah.
goes back to what Barry said earlier in the comments, let your actions speak so loudly I can't hear what you say.
Hmm.
See, the truth is in your actions because the actions come from a belief system. And the
Right.
scripture tells us, right? Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. So the mouth
Right.
ain't gonna move until the heart is overflowing with a certain thing about this certain situation. So it's the
Right.
same thing with our actions, right? So our heart pumps blood to the rest of our extremities. Am I right?
That's it.
So those extremities ain't gonna move until the heart pumps it what it needs. And so that belief system is really what's getting that heart to move. So that heart is the key. Your actions are literally going to speak out your truth. So
Right.
if you decide not to show up, if you decide not to do it, if you decide to you know, wait until the very last minute to where the time doesn't you don't have any more time anymore, then really what you're doing is you're telling the truth. I didn't want to do this. Simply stated, I didn't want to do it, or I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want anything about this. And so that's what the your actions are speaking so loudly I can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Your mouth is not saying it all. It's your actions.
That's right. That's right. I think also anytime you're waiting to the last minute to do anything, you're not preparing yourself to be the best. I find that a lot of times, even in my own life, I find that I think I do too many things. That may sound odd, but sometimes I find in my own life that sometimes I'm in so many, got my hands in so many different areas. It's hard for me to be good at one thing. So sometimes we got to look at our life and say, you know what, I'm making some of my actions are becoming an excuse of why I'm not doing good in this my primary thing.
Yeah.
That makes sense what I just said. I hope it does to you. I hope you still listen, Andre, because I think that's a really good way of explaining it. We need to know what our purpose is and what the Lord's will is for our life. And when we know what that is, stick to things that further our goal, further our purpose, further the Lord's will for our lives. Because when we do that, then we know once we get aligned with Him, there's no stopping us. But too many times we put our hands in so many different things, and those things that we're involved in are really excuses of why we're not doing the right thing or the best thing moving forward in the direction the Lord would have us go. So that's just a thought process for you too. So a
Can
little, a
I
little
ask,
bit more different, or just to swing it another way.
so can I ask a question too about this? There are a lot of times too where I find myself and I find other people doing very similar things, and that is this: wanting to be able to do the extra things, right? So someone asked me, Maisha, can you help me with this at, let's say, 8 p.m. And then I rationalize, well, I got to take my daughter to practice at 7:30. I drop her off, make sure she makes it to the field safely, and then that'll take me about 15 minutes to get back to where you are, and then so that'll be about 8 o'clock. I mean 7:45. That'll be there a little bit before 8 o'clock. 7:45, 7:50. Um, okay, so yeah, I could do it. And then what happens is something happens at the doggone field, and it doesn't normally happen, but then what do I do? I'm not making up a story. I'm not trying to create a reason. I'm not procrastinating. But what am I into now? Dang it. So do I just not say anything to the person and not show up at 8 o'clock? Or do I call the person and say, hey, something happened that was unexpected. However, I am going to have to decline the offer to be able to do this thing with you. I'm going to need to reschedule. If the person gets upset, then it's like, well, you're making excuses. Well, this is a reason, and it is a justifiable reason in my opinion. But it is true that I am not going to fulfill that which what I said I was going to fulfill, or I gave my word to fulfill. So I think people fall in that category too when there's something that really actually comes up. And first of all, I'm not going to leave my child in a situation,
Right.
right? That's not going to happen. Um, And also, I'm not going to lie to you and say, well, I'll still be there, because that's not also going to happen. I'm not
Right.
going to do it. So for me, telling the truth in this, sometimes for people, because we can get all in the weeds with this, but sometimes people are like, well, you should have just kept your word and went. Yeah, my word is good, but my first responsibility is to my child. My child is who I'm going to protect and make sure is fine before I go off and try to appeal to somebody else. And that's where I think a lot of people, we get into trying to making up stuff so that we don't hurt this other person, because we're definitely going to say this other person trumps you. There,
Right.
that's the way it is. And I know that I can be very abrupt in the way I say things. I can be very matter of fact and frank. It's just sometimes I do believe, especially hearing from these teenagers, I do believe it is much better said to just be honest. Just, sorry, honey, this isn't going to work, because this other thing is really important right now, and I know what you have is important to you. However, this is not going to be able to trump that.
Well, remember, a reason and excuse are not the same. So
Mhm.
people use them interchangeably, but they're not. And we got to make sure we understand that, because see, once again, the reason implies that a fault is sincerely recognized. I recognize, okay, something took place. Okay, and so that's where people miss it. Okay, I'm not using
Mhm.
this as an excuse. I'm not trying to justify, well, I did this because you did this. No, I'm saying I had a car accident, for instance. If I have a car accident, I may not be able to feel my that next engagement I have with you because I can't get there in time. I'm giving you the exact reason. That's not an excuse. I'm not trying to cover it up. Okay, I'm not trying to say, well, I didn't have no gas in my car, and I knew I didn't have no gas in my car since yesterday, and then now I'm not coming anymore. That's an excuse.
Yes.
Hey, remember, sometimes, guys, circumstances, are real, right? Sometimes we have a circumstances that will change my day, will change your hour, will change your next few minutes. So that may be very true. Okay, but how we respond to our circumstances means everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not necessarily, just because you have to tell somebody you may have to change the direction in which you were trying to go because of a certain circumstances. As long as you give them the truth, that's the actual reason. Now, sometimes, once again, we place blame on certain things. Like I said, hey, because I ran out of gas. Come on, bro. You knew that yesterday. So don't make this be don't allow this to be an excuse of why we couldn't get our work done. That's way different than an actual real circumstance happening in your life. So
Yeah.
we make sure we all understand that. So thank you, Andre, and thank you, Barry, for make sure you guys write in. I appreciate you, Andre. I appreciate you, BJ. Because even BJ talks about time with prayer. Now I'm going to talk to you guys about this for a moment. This came across the screen earlier. I'm hoping it's still here. But if we could find out the thing he said about prayer, not having enough time to pray. We always talk about this as men. Not having enough time to pray is usually, the big excuse, especially with the men. That we talk about that in the men that we work with. And I get this. Time is probably one of our most precious commodities because we don't ever get it back. At the same time, to sit there and, for instance, we talk about this, to tell your heavenly Father in 24 hours, a 24-hour day that you couldn't give him a couple minutes of your time to pray is probably unacceptable. Could you imagine being married and you say, well, beautiful, I didn't have time to talk to you in the last 24 hours because I just couldn't find the time to do it. Yeah, out the house.
Not in this marriage.
Yeah, got a man out the house and divorce quick as possible, right? And we address that. But when you look at it like that, right, you have to say, man, I don't think about it like that. So, can you imagine, your heavenly father, you putting your heavenly father in a place where you don't want to spend that time, but you say you want relationship. You won't not spend that time, but you say he's your master. You won't
Yeah.
spend that time, but he's supposed to be your Lord. And we address it from this standpoint because we make time for things that we want to do.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we cannot allow that we don't have time in any area of our life. Okay, we don't allow that excuse to be there if we say we truly want it.
Yeah.
Does that make
What?
sense? So I
Yeah,
want
and there,
to just pass this by because I thought it was a very good thing that BJ brought up. And
I
so,
think that's very important, because too, this is another thing that I keep running into with people, is the formality of things. So literally, like, for instance, I have a loved one that lives a distance away, and when I'll give them a call, um we've both been thinking about each other for days. But sometimes I'll just give her a call and like, hey, I was just thinking about you, but I'm on the road because I was going to text, but I can't do that on the road. And too many days keep going by. So I'm just going to go ahead and just call you, say hi. And she'll be like, yeah, hey, I was thinking about you the same way. But you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm in the middle of something, but I want to tell you I love you too. Love you. Bye. That is literally how we keep in touch a lot of the time. And it could be me on the other side. Like she could be calling right now, and I'll be like, I'll call, I could just text her, oh, can't talk right now, whatever. But we tap in with each other, right? Sometimes people think, oh, if I don't have an hour to talk, if I don't have 30 minutes to talk, it's not going to be real. It's not going to be, since they won't get the sincerity out of it. No, sometimes literally we have to just tap in. And that's what people, in my opinion, think about the Lord. If I don't have all this stuff that I got to say, if I don't know the right scriptures to speak out, if I don't know where to go in the Bible, then I don't think, then I don't have the time to do it, because they're thinking about all this formal portion instead of let's get real. Sometimes we need to tap in. Father God, I just thank you for waking me up this morning. I appreciate you for the family you've given me, the life you've chosen for me, Father, the things that you have in store for me. Thank you for bringing me through all those hardships, Lord. You could do this on the way to work in the morning. You could do this in the shower.
Right.
And I hate to say this too, but you can also do it on the porcelain throne. There's no formality where God says you can't thank me there. You can't pray to
Right.
me there.
Right.
So there's plenty of time that we have. It's just, are we thinking about it too formally? Are we thinking about it and making it into something that it really doesn't have to be in order for us to excuse ourselves from doing it?
Mhm.
There's some questions I think sometimes we can ask ourselves, and we can get ourselves out of that former way. That
Got
makes sense.
it. Got it. Well, I think that's good, guys. Actually, I'm gonna be preaching on this weekend coming up here, this coming Sunday. So I'm not sure when you'll watch this, but the topic. So if you look for it, the series is excuses, and the topic is excuses are destroying my life. So, matter of fact, I'm going to touch on some of the things we touched on today, and so please get a chance. If you get a chance to watch it, watch it. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So
Not get a chance. We're not giving them excuses. Remember,
oh yeah,
no
you gotta
chance.
watch it. You gotta watch it. You gotta watch it. It'll be on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ HVM network, I believe. So I got to know that by heart. But you can definitely you can definitely find that with our website, harpersvillage.org. But it's like I say, it's gonna be really good. It's gonna talk about some of these things. It's going to give you examples in the Bible of people using excuses and it destroying their lives. People using excuses and it's literally changing their lives. Matter of fact, it was one couple that used an excuse and it changed the entire direction, okay, of every human in this world. And so that's going to be something that I talked about in the sermon this coming up weekend. And so once again, that sermon will be called "Excuses Are Destroying My Life." So look forward to that this coming Sunday. And man, please, you guys continue to comment, continue to give your input. I think this topic is a great topic, and we're going to be knocking a few more weekends out within this topic of excuses, because we got to grow. It's time for us to get better. It's time for us to figure out what's real and how to answer the mail, so to speak. How to be better in every area of our lives and not allow excuses to be detractors in our lives. So I hope I made sense with that right there. Do you have anything closing, my issue before we get out of here today?
No, I put the name of the network for YouTube. So
Okay,
if
so yeah,
you have any questions or thoughts, just look down in the comments, and place a comment as well. If you have any comments about what we have been talking about today, if you have any questions, if you want to see the sermons that are coming up and have actually already transpired, go to that link right there. And we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to um, acknowledging the things that you say. So whether it is a question or just a comment, we appreciate it. Can't
yes,
wait to see you guys again. What, next week?
yes. That next week, I think I had it right, Mike. So give me a second, I might have messed this up here. So I know it's you. Did you check it, Mike? That's right one. You
I did. I actually
okay.
went to YouTube,
Oh,
Harvest Village
good, good,
Ministries,
good. Because I'm like, man, I'm getting
hvmfg.org.
better. I'm gonna get better. I'm going to get better, so I can make sure I have that ready and able to tell people better than I'm doing right now. Guys, we're trying to get the social media thing together, so work with us as we do that. Thank you guys so much. So on the bottom of your screen, it should be it's youtube.com/@HVM Network. So that's what that is. Other than that, family, thank you guys for hanging in here with us today. Thank you for listening in. I guess, what do we call this? Is it a vlog or just a whatever you call it? I don't even know what to call it.
A great time to talk.
Yeah, great. I like that. I like a great time to talk. Thank you guys for watching us today. Take care, family. We'll see you soon. Bye now.
Have a good weekend.
Have a great weekend.